What is truth, and why is it important? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John, and today I'm going to discuss the nature of truth and why it's important. Truth and the search for truth and the discovery of truth is the driving force behind all philosophy. Truth is a gateway into the dimension from which our reality originates. Now, that's not my opinion. That's Plato's opinion. I happen to agree with Plato. And that's one of the cool things about philosophy, and one of the cool things about truth, is that it's an open source field that we can discern for ourselves. And when we get to the matter of truth, which is the aim of philosophy, it is the goal to be able to discover, articulate, replicate, and share with others in the spirit of collaboration what truth is. It brings us to moments like this, where we sit down and we say, hey, you're right, been living life. In philosophy, the data set, the information we get to work with is all of life. It's a pretty robust data set when you think about it. It's everything. In any way, in any manner that you want to get into it, you can get into it. The goal is to find and develop a system of thought that can be truthful, that can get to the truth. And you would think in a field that's where the whole aim and the whole goal of the field is truth, that truth itself would be a very clear and very well laid out definition or concept or set of information. But you kind of be a little bit wrong, because it is, even though it's the most fundamental portion of philosophy, it's the part that remains, I don't want to say ineffable, but close, right? So where do we begin with truth? Like, where does anyone begin with truth? Like, in our reality, where we're at, a lot of people, they like to think that truth is a series of agreed upon facts. Like a fact is a closed circuit of information that holds informational integrity and can withstand any sort of intellectual probing, any sort of perspective that can be put onto a truth. Like, you have truth A, and truth A doesn't really matter what it is, but if truth A is in its own little closed circuit of truth, and it's, for a fact is say it's fact A, and fact A is in a little circle, and somebody says, hey, I've determined that this is a fact, this is a truth, this is true, this is a small piece of truth, it's fact, right? And then the idea is that that fact can stand alone, and it can enjoy scrutiny from anyone else in any manner, and people will still come back and go, yes, I have looked into your fact A, and fact A is in fact fact A. It still is, despite all of my probings and all of my queries and experiments. Fact A, it's fact A. You've got it, right? And then some people go, oh, well, that's the truth, right? And when you can prove that a fact is fact A, then that's truth. Okay? Now, facts are good. And all the different philosophers, they have different stances on what makes a fact, if a fact's even if a fact is relevant, right? Like, okay, good for you. You figured out that, like, an apple is an apple. Okay, so that's a fact. But is it a fact? Because, as Shakespeare once said, a rose by any other name smells as sweet, right? So what are we talking about in facts before we even get to truth? Because I believe that facts are just parsed out sections of the reality we call truth. So it gets a little bit fluid when you start to say, okay, then you start getting to, is a fact an object or is a fact a concept? Right? And now you're starting to get into the nitty gritty, into, the ontology, into what actually constructs these things in the reality. Is a fact a thing or is a fact a concept? Does it have to stay how it is to remain a fact, to remain in its truth? Right? Like Wittgenstein, he says nothing doing. He's like, Eiffel Tower, it's the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Is it the Eiffel Tower if you move it? Right? Facts. So some people will go down the path of facts. Science is just filled with facts. Science, in terms of a search for truth, which many, many, many scientists enter into the realm of science because they wholeheartedly believe, and with their full intellect believe, that a series of verifiable facts or a series of verifiable causes and effects with high correlations are in fact truth. I know that's not true. It seems true. However, it is not. Why? Why do I say that that's not true? Because the reality from which we are pursuing this information and drilling down into this information, specifically like on the science side, but just in this realm that we live in this reality that we're in, we are in a temporal reality. We are in a reality that is constant, in pure constant decay. The reality that we live in, this lower reality, this physical matter-based reality that is constructed of atomic particles, light waves, encased light wave particles in some sort of cosmic paper mache molecular structure, we know for a fact that everything in this reality has a half-life. What that means is that everything is in a state of decay, which means that everything is constantly changing. Everything is constantly temporary. Everything is temporal. Which means that none of the so-called facts in the observational world, especially of science, which deals almost exclusively, I'd say basically exclusively in measurable phenomenon, things in the world of matter, cannot be counted on for the truth in their shell, in the shell of them. Now, what constitutes the shell of these material objects? Well, everything. Its physical presentation, its vibratory system, its emanation of its utility into the reality itself, the amount of mass it displaces, the energies it attracts, and the concepts that are projected upon it, which is typically where a philosopher will look, and a casual philosopher who hasn't gone into the depths yet, which is what we're doing here, will look at it and go, oh, well, that's the truth of that object. An apple is an apple. Why? Because I can see that it's an apple, because it's a fruit, because it's this, because it's that. And they will give you many descriptors. They will tell you many of its utilities, and they will describe it in great detail. In fact, they might describe it to such a detail that you may walk away going, that is irrefutable that an apple is an apple. All of those words, all of those concepts are temporal. And they're only emanating off of an object of which other beings in the reality have ascribed it words, descriptions, utilities. Even if the utilities described have been determined to be of high correlation, they are simply temporal. And all objects in the reality have this temporal nature. And all of the concepts that have been put onto them are of a temporal nature. And so when we are determining what truth is, we can be easily misled by the superficial truths, seeming truths that are emanating off of objects or phenomena or even concepts in the material world. And that's where we have to keep in mind that the world that we are existing in is a vibrating hologram comprised of infinite half-lives. Everything is in decay. We're in a sort of harmonized decay. Now, that being said, our harmonized decay is also sequenced by the introduction of births and new objects, and the half-lives are sequenced so that the temporal reality continues. And we have it on good authority from the ancients, because they existed before we did, that these half-lives continue. And so in terms of the integration and the harmonization of all the births and decays, that's what keeps this temporal reality, this dimension, going. It also makes it more difficult for the true philosopher to get past the seemingly superficial truths of objects and concepts that pop up in the temporal reality. And so many people in lay people in common use will look around the reality and go, well, this is true, and this is true, and this is true, because science says this, and there's a high correlation for that, and like this and that. But you don't know, because you could be seeing something that's true, that's only true for 1,000,000 years. Someone can give you a series of facts or quote unquote truths that are only good for 100 million years. And you can walk away saying, oh, well, that's true. It's not true. It's a temporary state of affairs that has the appearance of clarity. So what is true? So what is truth? True truth is the essence of the reality itself. The reality itself has a function to present us with parsed out pieces of the reality that are all presenting the same essence within them. At their core, every single piece of the reality is presenting itself to us with the exact same essence. The exact same, when you dive in through all the dimensions and you get to it, there's an electrostatic plasmic fuel that every single thing in the reality is homogeneously comprised of. Now, there are layers between the temporal reality that we're in, having a human body, eating an apple, reading the newspaper, getting mad at politicians, whatever it is. There are interceding layers between this temporal dimension that all orthodoxy admits that we're in, and getting to that electrostatic plasmatic layer of creation. And that is why I say that truth is the gateway to the dimension from which our reality originates. Any truth can lead you there. If you study any part of the reality deeply enough, sufficiently enough, to the core of the essence, you will find truth. And along that way, all the truths will be revealed to you, all the ones that you can handle, all of the ones that your personal philosophy and the way your mind is set up to calculate the information and process the information will be revealed in your path to the true essence of the reality itself. So in a way, you could say that the truth is the light. Because when you make the journey from this temporal dimension back to the light, there are many, many layers. I'm not going to list them all here because I don't want to ruin your journey for you. That's the fun of life, is to figure these things out yourself. You know, some say it's the chief aim of life is to take this perspective journey for yourself and satisfy to your own level of consciousness that it is in fact true. Excuse me. So I'm not going to ruin that for you, and that's a lengthy journey for a person, and it's super fun. I think it's the true philosopher's ride, is to go from this dimension and drill down into pardon me, I need a cough button on this. Drill down into the core light, which is there and is verifiable, and verifiable in every single manner in which you can conceive. But once you do it philosophically, then you can come back and figure out the science of it. You can come back, once you've philosophically penetrated the reality to its core essence, and you know that it is the light, the universal frequency, the electrostatic, plasmatic fuel of everything, the light that all the sages and philosophers and messiahs and all of the truly enlightened people will come back and tell you, yeah, that's what it is. Once you've made that journey and you've brought the light back like your own personal Prometheus, then you'll be in a position to create the other physical objects in this temporal reality to prove it. But guess what? 99% of people that make that journey and come back realize that there's no need to do it. Because once you've made the journey and found fire for yourself and found the light for yourself, and you come back, it's in you, and you realize it's always been in you, and that's the calibration for truth and other things. Because the nature of the journey to drill down into the essence of the truth, which is in every object, because the reality itself is really a beckoning invitation to make that journey into the essence of the reality itself. When you come back with it and it is you and you've become it, because the journey transformed you in a way that is irreversible, and you will vibrate with it. And when you take that vibration into the temporal reality, other things that are truthful will vibrate with you. And that is how you find out what the truth is. When you've embodied the universal frequency, other things that embody the universal frequency will be clear to you, and you will have clarity. It is how one achieves clarity. To go into the pool of the light and come back out refreshed and walk around with eyes anew, the truth will be in plain view. Falsehoods and shades of gray and deceptions and things will become so petty and so juvenile and so deceptive and such a waste of the time. And the vibes just won't resonate with you. They can't, because there is only truth, and all else is falsehood. So the chief aim of philosophy is to find the truth, and the truth is the essence of life, and the essence of life is the light. And that's why it's important. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Philosopher's Corner. I bid you well on your journey to find the light yourself and your transformative journey through philosophy. I believe philosophy is one of the most beautiful parts of the human condition, and I hope you have a great life, which is the light.